Colin's easy way out. Copyright Andre M. Pietroschek, all rights reserved. Disclaimer, no warranties. Original written for Reedsy, inspired by prompt 326 that I could not afford. For Wendy already decided that I am fat, dull, daft, bankrupt, and boring. People say that Jihad offers no easy way out and no retirement path worth going for. People are right, yet not in the way they twist it to endure their mainstream drone existences daily. Coleen Latera knew better. From experience. 25 years of her life were Jihad contribution enough, as the early waves of jihadi were anyway supposed to die in the target zones before repopulation by real Islamists would follow. Nothing new and nothing secret. The jihadis celebrated their goal of murdering anyone of a different opinion, be that about the Prophet, be that about the opiate trade, and all the havoc it wreaked. It mattered no more. Coleen had been nothing special until that moment of insight made her go for the better result. A risky choice, and probably treason to jihadi ego, yet for her well-being, it was the only option still. The efficiency of the jihadi, if one asked Coleen, stemmed from their strategic superiority to the corrupted West, the lost in politics Asia, and most other regions. By now, centuries of spreading the words of the Prophet had been successfully done, and resistance was laughable at best. Their enemies trapped themselves into utopic humanist ideals, while every single jihadi sought to kill. And killers they were, not only in a violent, brute way. When it helps in the long run, as the unbelievers are impatient, then jihadi would enter peacefully, from pretending to be victims to whatever excuse their opposition wanted to fall for. Coleen was by far not the best habitual liar in the mob, and that would just be her folks of the jihadi in Central Europe. Heroin alone funded future decades of holy war, and fentanyl ensured that the jihadi would not run out of money within the next 75 years. The jihadi entered factories, corner stores, and corporations with a mindset of being the best possible employees, playing along. That had the side effect of studying their future victims and enemy infrastructure and finance. Easier than it was ever expected, for in the corrupted West, which of course proved the Prophet's words truer than ever, the people were so ignorant and trapped in their bloated egomanias that Italy, Germany, France, and Denmark were infiltrated with less than 10% of the usual efforts and sacrifices. Puppeteering, social networking, and manipulation. The euphemism used was only another layer of deception, as the jihadi operated above the fools they gladly used as worthless cannon fodder. Junkies, political malcontents, incompetent narcissistic blokes with corporate ambitions. They all were only unwitting pawns to make infiltration, takeover, or wreak maximum damage while all looked peaceful, routine, and so much easier. By all Coleen knew, Europe was originally supposed to fall in the year 2200, new estimate 2055, as a fear of the nuke unleashing USA finally realizing the fatal and long-term Cold War that their greed for oil had started, did make the strategists choose a more subtle, more cautious approach. Depicted as constantly berserk desert nomads with assault rifles in hand. Indeed, very few realized that the legendary assassins were far from one-dimensional and even farther from lacking discipline. Corrupting others without allowing oneself to be corrupted. It sounds deceptively easy, as it was designed. Making the wannabes and imposters voluntarily mess with deadly serious professionals who had decades more experience of how to live with murder. At age 16, any girl of their mob was not only a drilled whore, but also contagious by design. Slowly progressing diseases that seemed curable, as the unbelievers could not even imagine that true jihadi would gladly die for their cause, instead of falling for the capitalist baubles of the West or the spiritual charades of Asia. Jihad did not win by the will of God as such, albeit the Prophet clearly was the highest chosen mortal God ever allowed. Jihad progressed, for nobody else could form and maintain a faction that would be smart, vigilant, and fierce enough to keep the jihad at bay. Yes, defeating the Islamist supremacy was no longer a real topic, as 2/3 of the planet were firmly in jihadi hands and would remain so. People were killed without reason, and more were killed on suspicion of usurpation attempts. Coleen's training had started with similar goals, as she was drilled to please sexually without her emotions or pain ever impairing her performance. While it was intended to seem like sex, the real tricks involved much more than spying and infecting the unbelievers, yet some stayed hearsay, as not even loyal agents ever were informed about the proverbial big picture or larger-scale plans. The West spoke of pedophiles, grooming gangs, and junkie scum overrunning entire cities of their supposed good, Christian folks. Yet, exactly that, the West was nothing but a guilty remnant of a dying and delusional church that did not even have the nerve to admit that their ambitious charade of crusades to steal land would demand much more than an official apology. Coleen had survived those years and would have died away like another diseased woman too old for the less painful charades, but she made her move instead. She had gathered her money, secured favors with medical doctors, and with more than 20 years of job experience, she also had some good guesses on how to trick and deceive her superiors, until that one window of opportunity finally allowed her to get out. It had come, that window, as if by the mercy of God. A suicide mission had resulted in Coleen becoming Coleen, as the former owner of that name was killed and disposed of without a chance to ever be found. Guilty conscience was a construct of Western psychiatry, and Coleen, for the first time in her life, was free to do what she wanted, could afford it easily, and even sleep without a horde of horny males mistaking that for another fuck puppet freebie. Staying off radar sure did not come easy, yet outside of Europe, she could even temporarily fool lower-rank jihadi, and so all the necessities others called crimes were kept from overwhelming her. Cutthroats were rare indeed, poisoned or contaminated food and drink much more frequent, as keeping up the normalcy facade had served the jihadi well. In Europe, the mere pride of most people would not allow them to admit that these ignorant morons helped their fiercest adversaries to infect fellow Europeans, thereby weakening the enemy resistance and the enemy's commerce even more. While not a plain nomad like the media depicted Kim Kardashian, Coleen also remained on the move, always avoiding the largest and most expensive areas, settling for decent luxury well earned. She made her way to the plane's restroom, eager to refresh her makeup and ensure she would be stylish and clean. For one moment, the plane shook, and Coleen nimbly had to struggle for balance, her hands even touching the walls to keep herself upright. Then slight headaches started, one instance before darkness seemed to swallow her whole. Coleen felt numb and detached, yet had suffered no head wound at all. Lifting herself up, she looked into the restroom mirror, only to see the face of Yusuf, one of her old instructors. He stared at her with eyes full of contempt and hate. PTSD, Coleen thought, only to collapse again dead. An instant later, as if by a secret screenplay, Wendy McCandy, totally an agent of freedom and the Western way of life, Pope cheek-kissing killer nun, and never any inflated ego along with it, gracefully entered despite the door having been locked, body-bagged Coleen's dull, daft, and boring corpse, and turned the wayward vessel back on a more proper course, a Wendy McCandy course. The end.